I spent $120 on a gold-plated cat bowl this month. And guess what? The cat doesn't even use it. It drinks from my coffee mug instead. Is this normal? Do you also feel like your wife's cat lives better than you? But oh, there's more to this story. My name is Richard. I'm 55, retired, and living in San Francisco. My wife's name is not disclosed for censorship reasons, but her cat's name is Mr. Fluffy. Mr. Fluffy is a Maine Coon, massive, regal, and with an air of entitlement you'd expect from royalty. He doesn't just live in our house, he reigns over it. It all started on a Tuesday morning. I had just poured myself a fresh cup of coffee when I noticed the gold-plated cat bowl sitting untouched in the corner of the kitchen. Mr. Fluffy was perched on the counter, lapping water from my coffee mug. Seriously? I muttered. The bowl had been a recent addition to our household, courtesy of my wife's sudden obsession with elevating Mr. Fluffy's lifestyle. But Mr. Fluffy, being the diva he was, had decided it wasn't good enough for him. That day, while my wife was out, I decided to tidy up the kitchen. As I picked up the bowl to move it, something caught my eye underneath it. A small, folded piece of paper. My curiosity piqued. I unfolded it. It was a handwritten note. Meet me at the Redwood Inn. Room 207. Saturday night. My stomach twisted into knots. Redwood Inn wasn't exactly a luxury hotel. It was one of those tucked-away places, not sketchy, but not exactly a spot you'd go for business meetings either. Who was she meeting there? I tried to shake it off. Maybe it was old, maybe it wasn't even hers. But the handwriting, it was unmistakably hers. For the rest of the day, I couldn't focus. Every conversation we had felt loaded with subtext. Every glance she gave me felt like it was hiding something. That Saturday, she told me she was going out for a spa evening with some friends. "Don't wait up for me," she said casually. As soon as her car pulled out of the driveway, I grabbed my keys. The Redwood Inn wasn't far. The neon sign flickered faintly as I parked across the street. I sat there for a long moment, staring at the building, wondering if I was overreacting. But then I saw her car parked near the entrance. Room 207. I made my way through the narrow hallway, my footsteps muffled by worn-out carpet. The door to room 207 was slightly ajar, and light spilled into the hallway. What would you have done in my place? Would you have knocked? Would you have barged in? I pushed the door open slowly. Inside, my wife was sitting on the edge of the bed. Across from her, sitting in a chair, was a man I didn't recognize. He was older, with graying hair and an expensive-looking blazer. They both froze when they saw me. "Richard," my wife said, her face pale. The man stood up awkwardly. "I should go," he said, grabbing his coat. "Sit down," I said firmly. My voice surprised even me. He hesitated, then slowly sat back down. "What's going on here?" I asked, looking straight at my wife. She looked down at her hands. "Richard, it's not what you think." The man cleared his throat. "Mr. Anderson, my name is David Miller. I'm a financial advisor." "Financial advisor? Then why are you meeting in a hotel room?" I snapped. My wife spoke up. "Because I didn't want you to know about this. I've been making investments, secretly. I didn't want you to worry." Investments? It turned out she had been using our savings to make some risky financial moves. David was her advisor, and they had been meeting in private because she was terrified of me finding out before she could show me results. "I wanted to surprise you," she said softly. "I wanted to show you that I could contribute more. That I could make our future better." I sat down on the bed, my head spinning. "Why didn't you just tell me?" I asked. She started crying. "Because I was scared. I didn't want you to think I was being reckless." We sat in silence for a while, David awkwardly excusing himself after a few minutes. When we got home later that night, Mr. Fluffy greeted us at the door, yawning as if he had the weight of the world on his tiny shoulders. The next day, my wife showed me the portfolio she had been building. Some of her investments were actually doing well. Others, not so much. We agreed to work on it together moving forward. No more secrets. But the thing about trust is, once it's cracked, The pieces never fit back together quite the same way. And Mr. Fluffy? He still refuses to drink from the gold-plated bowl. So tell me, have you ever found something you wish you hadn't? Because I certainly have. And if you've made it this far, drop a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. We all mess up sometimes, right?
I want to share with you one more interesting story from my life. My best friend Chester, a manager with a $600,000 salary, is always hitting on my wife. Isn't it strange how $600,000 can make someone seem so effortlessly charming? Do you think money adds a layer of confidence that's hard to resist? A few months ago, Chester invited us to spend a weekend at a countryside cottage he had rented. Come on, you two need a break. This place is gorgeous. Private lake, cozy fireplaces, and a fully stocked wine cellar, he said with that easy grin of his. My wife was practically glowing with excitement. The drive out was beautiful. Rolling hills, golden fields, and the faint glow of sunset painted the horizon. Chester, of course, was driving his luxury SUV, music playing softly in the background. When we arrived at the cottage, it was everything he had promised. Rustic charm mixed with modern elegance. The first evening, Chester insisted on cooking dinner. Relax, man. You two sit back. Let me handle this, he said confidently, tossing a kitchen towel over his shoulder. But as dinner progressed, I couldn't help but notice the way he was interacting with my wife. He poured her wine first every time. He pulled out her chair before she sat down. He complimented her dress more than once. Honestly, if I had someone like you waiting for me at home, I'd never leave the house, he said casually during dinner. She blushed and laughed softly. Would you have let that slide? Or would you have called him out right there at the table? After dinner, we decided to sit by the fireplace. Chester opened a vintage bottle of wine from the cellar and poured generous glasses for everyone. At one point, he leaned over and tucked a loose strand of hair behind my wife's ear. There, perfect, he said softly. The air felt heavy. My wife glanced at me, her expression unreadable. Later that evening, Chester suggested we all take a walk around the property. Let's go see the lake. The moonlight is perfect tonight, he said. Halfway through the walk, Chester slowed down to fall in step with my wife. I walked a few paces ahead, pretending not to notice. Their low voices carried in the crisp night air. You know, you deserve someone who truly appreciates you, I heard Chester say. My wife didn't respond, or if she did, I didn't hear it. When we got back to the cottage, Chester excused himself early, saying he was tired. My wife and I sat by the fireplace in silence. Did he say something to you tonight? I finally asked. She hesitated. He was just being Chester. You know how he is. That phrase again. Just being Chester. But the thing is, Chester isn't just anyone. He's my best friend. And he was crossing lines that shouldn't be crossed. The next morning, I caught Chester in the kitchen with my wife. They were laughing about something, standing a little too close. When he noticed me, he stepped back casually and raised his coffee cup in a toast. To good friends and beautiful mornings, he said. That drive home felt endless. My wife stared out the window, avoiding eye contact with me, while Chester hummed softly along to the radio. When we got back, Chester hugged my wife goodbye, just a little too long. Take care of her, buddy, he said to me with a smirk. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every glance, every laugh, every word played on a loop in my mind. So tell me, have you ever watched your best friend flirt with your wife right in front of you? Because I certainly have. And if you made it this far, drop a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. We all mess up sometimes, right?
Subscribe to hear new interesting stories and find out how much money women spend. Subscribe to hear new interesting stories and find out how much money women spend.